Oh, Bob, I gotta go. Tell him I have to record today. Go ahead and have a meeting with Pam and I'm going to work tomorrow, so I can get that. Tell him whatever they come up with is fine.
Yeah, this is Andy Kent.
Andy,
He's a photographer. Is it okay if he takes a picture?
Sure. Hey, why don't we, have you had breakfast yet or lunch?
Neither.
Well, let's go down to the garden district. We really like that too. Back to the left there.
The whole thing seems to have something to do with the rent-a-car company in New York owning everything.
Yeah, they almost bought my publishers too.
Kenny wanted to buy them.
Yeah. They almost did buy it.
Have you heard Jack Holston's son before?
Yes. I love it.
Really?
I really like him a lot. I really like everything he says. It's like watching a double in a microscope. It's like a miniature cat. Hey, look. Thank you. I'm going to meet you down there.
Where is your dad?
See you later. Garden district's alright.
Is that the one that is Peter?
Yeah, right beside it. Yeah, good festival, first sell-out festival going on.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
A lot about it.
And this is Seventh Samurai, so that he's finished.
Yeah, I hope not.
It's going to be
Sure,
on
one
my
more-
phone. It's freaking right out. But we're headed over there.
It's going to play again, I think the 16th or something, one more day. Oh, that's weird. I guess they're only showing each show in a couple days.
A couple days when they bring it back, or one day later.
That's good. I really wanted to see it. I really want to send it. I wish it was
A bunch of them are supposed to be, like one of the greatest Japanese classics.
Yeah, I haven't seen very many of these films. Really glad just to get the best Japanese.
Can't remember something. There's one supposed to be the greatest fight scene of all time. It's one of them. You know, millions and millions of people or something. Brought out China for it. You're recording new stuff?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the setup we have. On the board upstairs and recorded all down there.
I think you prefer that to the electric setup?
No, we don't really, it's not the studio, really. It's just, I don't know, I guess we thought we'd do things a lot better when we're rehearsing. And, more comfortable. Yeah.
So you just leaving tape running while you're doing rehearsing?
Right. And then when we all feel one that we all think's good, we'll listen to it. And it's a lot cheaper and faster that way, too. Because you rent the equipment and then you can use it whenever you want it. Just so you can pay $1,000 a day.
So you can run into a studio, right?
Right, that's right. This will be the first record we're actually doing without a producer. We use the same engineer that we've always had, Bruce Botnick. I don't know if he'll become a producer or not, probably co-producer.
It'll be kind of owners and him.
Yeah. But, so that'll be a big change, too. In the past, the producer it's not that it was a bad influence or anything, but this will be, it'll be a lot different. Not having that fifth person there, fifth viewpoint.
Right. Usually a completely different viewpoint.
So we'll either hang ourselves or really try to something interesting.
What's going to be the first absolutely new stuff you've done in a couple of years, isn't it? 13 is greatest hits, and the live stuff is stuff you've been doing in concert.
Yeah, there were a few new ones on that. A year ago we finished Morrison Hotel. That was on it's more like a year since we've been in the studio, about a year.
Yeah.
I don't know why it took so long. I guess having that trial going on kind of broke everything up a bit. And I forget why we got recorded.
How does that stand? You're still on appeals?
Yeah, it's going to a higher court. State Supreme Court.
Miami State. Whatever happened with it? There were a lot of other busts around also, weren't there?
Everything else I've been acquitted on. So we're trying to get this erased because it's not good to have something like that on your record, man.
Are you still concerned with the kind of record?
It's just if something really serious happened, then you'd have a record and it makes it a lot worse, you know.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's not crime.
Well, it looked for a while like they were out to get you. There was like a federal hijacking bust or something also? Someone was telling you?
Well, it came under a law that was created because of hijacking, but it wasn't really a hijacking exploit. It was just a little over-exuberance on an airplane. You know, it wasn't a threat to anybody's safety or anything. And actually, we were acquitted because the stewardesses mistook me for someone else that I was with. Oh yeah, sure.
They mistook you for someone you were with?
Yeah, and so they were going by the seat identification, and they were saying the person in such and such a seat was causing all this trouble, and then they all identified me as being in another seat. So they were just trying to hang me, you know, because I was the only one that had a well-known face or something. So they were trying to get me for it. I don't know, I guess as an example of the people that behave in airplanes. The trouble with all these busts is people that I know, friends of mine, think it's really funny and they like to believe it's true. So they accept it. And then people that don't like me want to believe it because it's it's an incarnation of everything they consider evil. So they get hung both ways, you know.
How did they're just acquitted before anything happened?
I went through a trial there in Phoenix too. I had to go back several times to get that cleared up.
Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you? Anybody want a cocktail before you order? Is that tequila with...
Tequila.
That sounds good. I'll try one of those.
No, not good. No, never make it through the day.
Like some coffee or coffee first?
Yeah. It's always disorienting when you just get up and there's a luncheon menu.
I know, I just got up myself.
I can make up something. What does it look like your chances are in Miami of getting off? It's now just one misdemeanor charge?
Well, two misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Well, I have to be optimistic, so I think there's a good chance. We're gonna contend it on several grounds. First of all, they never really proved anything except profanity, which we admitted all along, that there was profanity used in the performance. And we were going to attempt to prove that did not violate contemporary community standards in the city of Miami. And to do that, we were going to take the jury to see a lot of movies, like Woodstock, and Hair was playing in town at that time, and they had nudity on stage every night, and they were allowing young people to go in of any age. And all the books that were available, even in school libraries, junior high school libraries, with four-letter words. So the judge refused to allow any investigation along those lines, and limited it to a criminal action. Well, they brought on about 13 witnesses. Every witness was either a policeman who was working there that night, or someone who worked for the city and happened to be there, or a relative of a policeman. In fact, that was their biggest witness, was a 16-year-old girl who was the niece of a police officer who got her and her date in free that night. And all their testimony was very contradictory. You know, every one of them had a different version of
I heard that
what happened.
I heard that girl called someone a little bitch after.
I didn't hear her do it. That's what I heard. But, they had thousands of photographs from many different people that were there, and there was no photograph of an exposure or anything near it. And the other charges, I think they just put in there to make it look more serious, you know, simulated masturbation and oral copulation.
With yourself?
Yeah, masturbation on myself and oral copulation on the guitar player. Which there's a picture of that in the inside sleeve of that Best Hits album. That was their big proof, you know.
What is the picture with a lamb on the end of your hand? A lamb head?
No, it's a real lamb. That guy, Louis Marvin, you know, the Moonfire. He happened to be down there. He travels around spreading his philosophy of nonviolence and vegetarianism. And he carried this little lamb around to demonstrate his principles. In other words, if you eat meat, you know you're killing this little lamb. So he gave it to me during the middle of the show, and I just held him for a while. It was really interesting that there was a lot of noise and a lot of commotion. It was almost deafening in the auditorium, but the lamb was breathing normally, almost purring like a kitten. It was completely relaxed. I guess what they say about lambs to the slaughter is true, you know, they don't feel a thing. Anyway, the judge limited the defense's witnesses. We had 300 witnesses who were there, and we were going to parade them all in to get their side of it. He limited the defense to the number of witnesses that the prosecution brought on, which is an entirely arbitrary maneuver.
Did the 300 witnesses volunteer? Were they? Did you run an ad, or?
Yeah, a lot of them did, and just through the grapevine, you know. But we had over 300 people that were willing to testify that they were there, didn't see anything of any of those alleged incidents. What it turns out that actually happened was a journalist happened to be there or heard about this concert, and the next day he went and wrote a sensational front page story about the concert, about inciting to riot, and the citizens became irate and began calling the police station asking why this had been allowed to go on and why wasn't I arrested. And I'd gotten up and gone on to Jamaica for a holiday that had been planned down there, and so about 3 or 4 days after the whole thing, they swore out a warrant for me. So you can kind of see how the whole thing, you know, began.
One of the things that just bothered me, I spoke to Mike Gershman when he was down there with you, and he said you weren't able to perform during the whole course of the trial. But is that true, or were you doing performances?
The only one we did during the trial went on for 2 months.
Did they put any limits on you as far as where you could travel or anything like that?
Not really. They might have, but we just went ahead and did a few things. But actually, the only thing I did was to fly to the Isle of Wight for a day, and then I came right back. We could have done it, but really, we never knew from one day to the next when court was in session. You know, they were doing an alternate day. Yeah, and he'd change it every day, so we never knew. So to have flown somewhere for a couple days, I really needed the weekends to rest up. You know, it was kind of an ordeal.
Do you think the whole thing was because of the way it came about and the arbitrary? Is it just a question of out to get you or out to get rock culture? Or?
Yeah, I think it was really a lifestyle that they were going after. I don't think it was me personally. I just kind of stepped into a hornet's nest. I had no idea that the sentiment down there was so tender. The audience that was there really enjoyed it. You know, it was, I think people reading about it in the paper, this distorted version, created a climate of hysteria. And then a few weeks later, they had an anti-indecency rally at the Orange Bowl with a famous fat comedian as MC.
Yeah, well known for his decency.
Right,
and trained.
And the president congratulated the kid that started this rally. They had them all over the country.
Yeah.
So I I wasted a lot of time and energy on that thing, but about a year and a half of kind of a gnawing disquiet about it. But I guess it was a valuable experience because I think before the trial I had a very unrealistic schoolboy attitude about the American judicial system, and my eyes have been opened up a little bit. There were guys down there, black guys, that would go on each day before I'd go on, like for, it'd take about 5 minutes and they'd get 20, 30 years in jail, you know.
Their trial.
Yeah, and if I hadn't had unlimited funds to continue fighting my case, I'd be in jail right now for 3 years. It's just, if you got money, you generally don't go to jail. It's about...
Did you find yourself excluded from the entire proceedings? The way I think Manson feels that he's not even a part of the trial. There's a whole system going on.
Yeah, I felt like a spectator, but I wouldn't have wanted to defend myself because I would have blown it, I'm sure. It's not as easy as it looks, you know.
Did you ever get to testify at all?
Yeah, I didn't have to testify, but we decided it might be a good thing for the jury to see what I was like, because all they could do is look at me for 6 weeks or whatever it was. And so I testified a couple of days. I don't think it meant anything one way or the other.
Did you used to have ties with company theater? Have you seen Children of the Kingdom?
I saw half of it, but I was so uncomfortable I couldn't sit through the rest of it.
Just because of the theater? Or because of the show?
Because of the show, it made me really uneasy. You know, not that I don't appreciate satire, but...
Is that what that was?
Yeah, it was satire. I like satire, but it just hit too close to home, you know, it made me real edgy, so I had to get up and split. But I enjoy their work, especially that maze ritual they have on Sunday, the liquid theater. That's one of the most interesting things they do. I don't know very many of them personally, but I've been attending their things off and on for a couple of years. I'm glad and amazed that they managed to keep going. I think that's great.
I was curious because the story is, you know, in ways parallels the kind of performer that the protagonist there is depicted to be is this vibrant show thing, and there's some sort of, at least I thought, you know, insight into what's going on in the performer's head. I mean, why do you think people go to see a rock concert, especially if they're going to be too noisy to hear the music?
Oh, I think people enjoy being in crowds. It gives them a feeling of power and security in a strange way. They like to rub up against hundreds of other people that are like them. It kind of reinforces their truth.
And what's your function in that as a performer? Just getting them together?
Yeah, it's just to be a focus for everyone's attention, because you have to have an excuse to mob together. You can't just, otherwise it'd just be what would you call that? That would be a riot or something, wouldn't it? I think it has to do also with
it probably has to do with a person's terminology, because lots of people would term what goes on at a Doors concert a riot. You know, whereas you may not or I may not.
No, we never really had any riots. I mean, a riot's a more out of control, violent thing. We never had too much what I'd call a real riot. I think it also it has something to do with swarming theory. The idea that in insect and animal species, when the food supply, the population starts outstripping the food supply, the animals or insects swarm together, it's a way of communicating and working out a solution, or making each other, signaling their awareness that there is a danger. And in nature, somehow a balance is worked out, and I think that's what, for example, in LA or New York, in many big cities, you feel crowded. You feel psychologically crowded and just physically crowded. People are getting very neurotic and paranoid. And I guess things like rock concerts are a form of human swarming to communicate this unease about overpopulation.
I don't.
That theory's not really well worked out yet. You know, I think there's something in it.
I heard you were going to try and do more club things, do whiskey things. I read the Rolling Stone interview with you. You said you might want to drop by the whiskey and just sort of do guest sets unannounced.
Oh, I said that years ago.
It wasn't this year's Rolling Stone interview?
Last year's.
Oh, it was last year's Rolling Stone interview.
Yeah, I was trying to get everybody to do that about a year ago, and no one wanted to, and now they kind of want to, and I totally lost interest. Although, I know it's a lot of fun, but I just don't have the desire to get up and sing much. I still enjoy music, but I don't really, kind of lost my interest for it.
Performing? Are you going to go more into doing your films?
Yeah,
poetry?
Yeah, films, I think. But there's no big hurry on that. How are you?
You've done about 5 films to date, or 5 that have been shown at least.
Yeah, 2 of them are. Well, one of them really is a real film. The other ones are real short ones.
Well, there's Feast of Friends and Highway and a few promotion films.
The Highway's the only really film I did. The others were more. I was actively involved in them, but they weren't really totally my film. But The Highway is, to a large degree. I always see films as a team effort, you know, except in rare cases. But yeah, I'd like to get Highway shown. I think maybe it might work in educational television, NET. It's about the right length. You see, it's an uncommercial type film. And it's too long for a short to play with another feature, and it's not a feature itself. 50 minutes. So it's an awkward length. I don't know. I think maybe educational TV might be a good spot for it. You've seen it, haven't you, Pat?
No.
You didn't see it?
I think I left right as you were.
Next time I show it, I'll invite you over to see it. You didn't see
Okay,
it?
no, I haven't. What's it about? Kind of, if it's the kind of movie you can say, what is it about?
There's no story, really, no real narrative, except there's a hitchhiker who we don't see it, but then we later assume that he stole a car, and drives into the city, and then it just ends there. As he gets into the city, checks into a motel, and goes out to a nightclub or somewhere, and it just kind of ends like that.
This sounds a little like in The Lords, the Oswald scene as a theme for a movie. Is that what that was?
I guess they're related. I had always been fascinated with a story about a hitchhiker who becomes a mass murderer. And I set out to make that film, but it turned into a different film, a much more subtle fantasy. Someday I'd still like to make that hitchhiker film, though, because I think it's a good one.
You play the hitchhiker in Highway. Is acting something you want to get into as?
No, it was just easier that way. Well, I don't know, it's heavy, but the cameras aren't. They're getting lighter and lighter. It's amazing. You know, actually, I realize now we didn't really have to do 35. You know, 16 would have been probably. One thing's remade to 16 hours. Yeah,
and you can blow them up.
Yeah, and for example, Woodstock is all 16, and the quality is, I think, beautiful.
A couple of things that you said about film kind of interest me, like the appeal of film is in the fear of death, something like the appeal of cinema lies in the fear of death. Is it something you can explain?
I just meant that I think in art, but especially in films, people are trying to confirm their own existence. Somehow they seem more real. Somehow things seem more real if they can be photographed and, you know, if you can create a semblance of life on a screen. But, you know, those little aphorisms that make up most of the Lords, if I could have said it any other way, I would have, you know. They're kind of to be mulled over and not taken too seriously, but it was, I did most of that book when I was at the film school at UCLA, and it was really a thesis on film aesthetics, because I wasn't able to make films then, so all I could do was think about them and write about them, and it probably reflects a lot of that. But then a lot of the passages in it, for example, about shamanism, turned out to be very prophetic several years later, because I had no idea when I was writing that that's what I'd be doing, but that's what it turned into.
Just as curiosity, it says on the liner of the book that your ambition is to be a film director. Is that your ambition?
Yeah. That's what I'd like to do.
Another thing, I like at the end where you kind of define the Lords as the people that are controlling art. Did I understand that right, or that are enslaving people by giving them enough art?
Strangely enough, that's what I meant. Is anyone ready to order? Do you think we should?
Special today's mumbles.
Veal and peppers.
It's some spaghetti with some veal, pepper, mushroom.
It had to be crab, but could I have a cheeseburger?
Medium.
One of these? Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll go her crassness one more and have a grilled cheese.
I'll go for just plain grilled cheese.
Right.
I'll like king size burger. Will be a taste.
Your play.
The Reuben is good. It's like that.
Why don't eat meat?
Oh, I'll take extra.
Would you like another drink?
Did you like this? You did? You want another one? Okay, she'll have another one and I'll have a beer, I guess.
Budweiser, McDonald's.
Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, so yeah, not controlling art necessarily, but just really what that book is a lot about is the feeling of powerlessness and helplessness people have in the face of reality, that they have no real control over events or their own lives, that something is controlling it. But the closest they ever get to it is on a television set. But in creating this idea of the Lord's, it also, I think, came to reverse itself, and now to me the Lord's means something entirely different. I couldn't quite explain it, but almost the opposite of that. You know, somehow the Lords are a romantic race of people who have found a way to control their environment and their own lives. They're somehow different from other people.
Is there a particular person that you could think of?
No, it's not about any particular person.
I want to talk a bit about your poetry also.
Sure.
No,
go ahead.
Overly sensitive. The new creatures. And there's a lot of creatures in everything you do. Lizards and snakes and snake skins and this kind of thing. That's part of your reputation, I think, is just the Lizard King. How does all that come about? Or has it?
I had a book on snakes and reptiles, and the first sentence of it struck me very acutely. It goes, reptiles are the interesting descendants of magnificent ancestors. And another thing about them is they're a complete anachronism. If every reptile in the world were to disappear tomorrow, it wouldn't really change the balance of nature one bit. They're completely arbitrary species, and I think maybe they might, you know, if any creature could survive another world war or some kind of total poisoning of the planet, I think somehow reptiles would find a way to make it.
How does that fit into your own self-concept as being that kind of? And once the appellation is transferred to you, does that put you in the same kind of class? Just curiosity, you know, your own.
Well, also we must not forget that the lizard and the snake are also identified with the unconscious and with the forces of evil. You know, they're the devil's gang. The reptiles are. And that piece, the celebration of the lizard, was kind of a invocation of dark forces. But it's all done tongue-in-cheek. I don't think people ever realize that it's not really serious, you know. It's just like if you play a villain in a Western, that doesn't mean that that's you. I mean, that's just an aspect that you choose to show, you know. So I don't really take that seriously.
Well, the lizard thing and Lizard King and all that.
That's supposed to be ironic. You know. Also, you know, and on a much more basic level, I've just always loved reptiles. horned toads. I grew up in the Southwest for part of my life, and I used to catch horned toads and lizards, and of course snakes are. I still can't get too near snakes somehow. They still have kind of a. I mean, it's hard for me to pick up a snake and play with it. Some people can do it quite easily, but there's something deep in the human memory that responds strongly to snakes. You know, they're probably.
The childhood dreams and all those things, you know, in one form or another.
Even if you've never seen one, you have like a dragon, you know, St. George and the dragon. I think a snake just embodies probably everything we fear, you know. But also, you know, basically their skins are just beautiful, you know. I guess that's why they become so fashionable, and well, I think they always have been, you know. But recently, snakeskin clothes and boots and.
There's probably also a little victory in taking the snake and wearing it.
Yeah,
sort of immunity.
Right. Sure. What do they call that? A totem or something? Or not a totem. What's a good luck? A talisman?
Talisman.
Yeah.
Another thing I saw in the New Creatures is a fascination with mirrors as opposed to windows, and looking through things and having things look back at you.
And I know, and it's interesting because that book was mainly written when I was very naive, so it wasn't something that was born out of you know, any great awareness of the universe or anything. It was a very naive little book, but somehow, for me, it holds up, a lot of it.
Does it bother you in a way that, you know, because you've got this written down, or because you've made some statement, the position that you're in, that people keep throwing it back at you, like I'm doing?
Well, it always amazes me that people think you're 2 years younger than you are, you know. I guess that's why you have to keep doing interviews. You know, it's like seeing baby pictures or something. It's kind of embarrassing and funny at the same time.
You mean the old interviews?
Well, no, I mean, interviews, I've always said about what I thought, you know, but just people believe old press clippings or something, you know, and remember a couple years ago when all that stuff was going on, well, people still remember all that, you know. I think it fulfilled a need people had, you know, for some figure who would represent a lot of things, so they created this thing. I had a good time.
A lot of the things you said were it seems to me, you know, now it seems to me perhaps calculated to get this kind of thing. Referring, you know, your music being part of the Wild West.
Yeah.
And your erotic politics, is that what you said?
Erotic politics, yeah. Well, you know, I think more than writing music and as a singer, any of that, I think my greatest talent was I had an instinctive knack for self-image propagation. You know, I was very good at manipulating publicity, just with a few little phrases like that, because having grown up on television and mass magazines and all that, I knew instinctively what people would attach onto, and so I just dropped these little jewels here and there, very innocently and seemingly innocently, and of course, you know, it was like just calling signals, you know.
Do you think that's what the appeal of the Doors was, or is?
No, I think we were very timely. The music and some of the ideas are very timely. They seem kind of naive now, but I remember a couple of years ago, people were into some very weird things. You know, there was a high energy level, and you could say things like that and almost half-ass believe it. You know, whereas now it seems very naive. And no, I think it was a combination of good musicianship and timeliness. And we may have been one of the first groups to come along that were openly self-conscious about being performers. In other words, reflecting on our own career as it was happening.
Yeah. Is it going to be? Do you foresee a change because in your music now and the things that you're going to be recording today?
Yeah.
Are they going to be less conscious of are they going to be as trend conscious or?
Well, it's not that we were trend conscious. We were doing exactly what we would have done anyway. But it came at the right time when you could get away with expressing sentiments like that. Yeah, but I'm sure we would have done the same thing anyway. Well, for example, the first album is not really socially conscious at all. It's just very universal, personal statements. And then each one got a little more socially aware, you know, of the whole landscape, and perhaps to the detriment of the music. I'm not sure. Although there were a couple of, I never thought of any of the songs as being political in that sense. They were more. Really, they could, as we traveled around and played to large groups of people, then some of the words couldn't help reflecting the things that I ran into, you know, traveling around. That was mainly it. It wasn't any conscious program. But in answer to your original question, I think that probably the things we'll record now get back to the blues, essentially, is what we do best, is blues. And I think we may even do a couple old blues and some blues of our own. And so...
By blues, I kind of...
just your basic blues, you know.
Yeah, but I still hear the, you know, that kind of driving Doors.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good blues. It won't be like... Yeah, it won't be like a guy with a guitar playing the blues. It'll be electric blues, you know. But blues, nevertheless. I hope. You know, you never know. When you start an album, you have one idea, and it could end up entirely different. But that's what I'm going to push for. Is that's the music I enjoy doing the best. It's the most fun to sing. I like jazz also, but you don't need a singer really for jazz.
that would just cut you out.
But those guys really, they ought to do some instrumentals. I've always pushed for that, but they've been reluctant to do it. I wish they would. For three guys, you know, with a drummer and just two instruments, these guys put out a lot of music, you know, a lot of sound, and it's.
What did you think when, again, I think it was in the Rolling Stone interview, when you added the line, "Father, I want to kill you," and it freaked them at the whiskey, and that terminated a thing there. How did you react when people were reacting that way to things you were singing?
Well, I like any kind of reaction I can get. So I enjoy it. Just anything to get, I guess, to get people to think, you know. I mean, if you can get a whole club full of drunk, stoned people to actually wake up from it and think, I mean, you're doing something. Because that's not what they come there for. It's to just to lose themselves, you know.
Do you think you'll be able to do that as well in film, as you've been able to do in person?
I don't see why not. I got an instinctive feeling for the film media. I think I'll do pretty good at it.
The things I've noticed that when someone puts down a good film, the best reaction they can get, if it's good to the same intensity that the Doors are when they're playing, is that people walk out on it. Is it?
Well, see, I like that kind of thing because I've never thought that an audience should be as passive as they become, and so. That's just. I think an audience should be an active participant in creating what's happening, and you can even do that with a film. You know, for example, it's up to you to close your eyes anytime you want, or get up and walk out for 5 minutes and come back, and that makes an entirely different movie, right? Than what a person would see if they just sat dutifully through it from beginning to end.
Did you try and do a live performance as part of Feast of Friends on San Francisco? Did it close with a... Someone told me that...
Did we show that up there? I think we may have at one time, yeah.
Or have you done that?
Oh, we did that at the Aquarius. We showed it after the concert was over. We showed that film, but that doesn't mean anything, you know. That was just because we'd made this film that we thought was really neat, and no one wanted to distribute it or anything, so we just show it whenever we could. Because it was worth seeing, you know, and I'm glad we made it. It'll be a good document of that era.
Do you find that people are more willing to accept your films, or more willing to dismiss your films, knowing either your notoriety or your background as singer?
I think I may get a chance to make a film because of that notoriety. I'll probably get one chance, you know, and if it doesn't really make it, it'll be very hard to get another chance. But I think almost anybody can get one chance these days to make some kind of film.
Well, when you're doing if the film is what you really want to do, do you find it's getting in your way when it's Jim Morrison, rock singer, comma director? You know, you probably have that after your name. You know.
They always want a soundtrack or something, you know. Or even have the audacity to want you to play a singer in a movie, play yourself in a movie.
Yeah. Well, that's been...
But since I'm not really interested in acting, it doesn't bother me that much. Shall we stop for a while and eat?
Yeah, okay, why don't we? Yeah, that'll... It depends.
I'm stealing somebody's... Oh, Martellus.
I've stopped enjoying a lot of it.
How can you go to that much music?
I don't know. It amazes me sometimes how I put up with it. I guess I don't know. It's part of it's just a job, but every once in a while you catch a really good performance that makes it all worthwhile.
Who have you seen that you like lately?
Last night I saw Richard Pryor, which really amazed me.
I hear he's gotten a little saltier than he used to be on TV.
Just downright risque, dirty. That was the only time I've been afraid to take pictures, because I was sitting in the back, and I was the only photographer there at the time, and I just clicked way in back at the bitter end, and he goes, "Stop the show, I hear a camera." You know, I put it down real quick, you know.
What was he worried about that for? He just didn't
Nothing,
really...
just as a part of the routine. Part of the routine. And then eventually I came up front and he stopped the show and, you know, started posing for me, which was sort of fun.
Well, Was there big crowds there?
There was, surprisingly. When we got there, there was very few people, and we thought it was going to be, another night at the empty bitter end. And it filled up, almost full. Which was really amazing.
What do you listen to?
I don't listen much. I really don't. I never did. I kind of came along when rock and roll, the old rock and roll was the big thing, and I guess a lot of people knocked me out. And then I discovered blues in college. I like that. And if I'm ever going to listen to anything these days, I like jazz. But man, there's just so much music. You can't. It's like swimming in a sea of marshmallows or something. You can't fall over everywhere.
Well, there's. I've seen perhaps like 3 or 4 performances in the last 6 months or so that I just thought were exceptional. And I've stopped going to a lot of places, like the Whiskey, unless there's someone that I desperately want to see. I won't go there, or someone that there's some kind of attraction to go see them. One was Pink Floyd. If you've heard them at all.
I think they're. The only thing I've heard is the things in Zabriskie Point is the beginning and the end, and they knocked me out. And I've heard a few. Oh, I heard them in Hyde Park. I happened to be in London when they did a free concert in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
And I could listen to them a lot.
That was an exceptional performance. Elton John, as a performer, was.
In fact, when I heard them and when I heard Miles a few times at the Manhole and at the Isle of Wight, I couldn't believe that he got it together to do the Isle of Wight. And I mean, I thought it was good. This new sound he has now. When I heard those two things, I said to myself, well, see, I'm not a musician, so I wouldn't know how to. All I knew is there was something there, and I figured if we couldn't go in that direction, and get complex like that, then best for us to do what we can really do best, which is blues. I don't think we'll ever. I don't know. I guess Pink Floyd's been together quite a while doing that kind of music, haven't they? They're not an overnight thing. And of course, Miles is, music's been his whole life, so I guess you can't get into that thing overnight. But
yeah. And some people I've seen have just been fun to see. Linda Ronstadt is fun to watch perform.
I really like her voice a lot.
Yeah. She's gotten a lot.
Yeah,
she's gotten a lot more relaxed on stage.
She's one of my. In fact, we played with her one time in Boston and some other city back east.
She was talking about Boston. I think really.
I really enjoyed it. I don't think she had a band that she'd been with for very long, and that didn't help it.
She has that problem regularly.
I also like that the singer in Mother Earth. No, Tracy. Yeah, I really like her.
Oh, she destroys me. I just listened to her album, the original album this morning, Bound So Low on it, Mother Earth. She's incredible.
Another Bessie Smith. She was the one like Bessie Smith? Blues?
I don't know, she's just great.
I have a friend, a girl, that's married to a friend of mine, and she only sings for friends. And I think if she ever performed publicly or on record, she'd be one of the great singers. I won't say any more about it, but there are nothing like a good female singer. There are not that many. I mean, the ones that I like personally.
Have you ever seen a group called Pollution?
No, I've heard they're quite good.
There's dumpy chick that sings with them. She's just got a voice. And
There's
what a heart.
Gail
That's
Hannis.
not good. Someone else told me that.
Gail Hannis and Joe Mama is
That's
nice.
really right. She's
I haven't seen them either.
hit.
That's,
You know,
oh
it's
yeah.
just somebody's gonna hit. Some chick's just gonna come along, and I hope it's Barbara Morrison.
I think everyone's trying to sort of get into Janis Joplin's place, you know, and
But there's a void that needs to be filled. I mean,
I don't think it needs to be filled.
Oh, I do.
I think there's a void, and voids are just fine.
I mean, I just really feel a lack for that kind of a singer, good chick blues singers.
Oh,
And how many? I listen to Bessie Smith over and over again.
Yeah, but as soon as you have someone like that, then the people want to kill them or something and get a new one.
Not me.
Well, you know, I actually don't know a thing about jazz. But for me, what it means is a kind of music that's based on improvising, in which you start out a set and you have an idea of the steps that it might go through, but it could turn it into something different. And when I see to me there's a show where they know exactly what they're going to do every step, and they come out and do a lot of songs. And then there's another type of music where you can feel the musicians reaching, and that's the kind that I appreciate.
Well, that's
And it can be in any music. It doesn't have to be what we call jazz. That, to me, that's what jazz means.
well, I know you get someone like Blood, Sweat, and Tears comes out and just does a set, and it's perfect, and they split. At the band, does the same thing. They come out and they're perfect, and they sound exactly like their albums, and then they split. And it leaves you with a kind of feeling that you might have stayed home and watched the album.
Yeah, Sly and the Family Stone concert was like that. It was very irritating. I mean, he said everybody up, and everybody got up and screamed and yelled. and you know, it was just very irritating because his music didn't warrant it. It wasn't stimulating the audience to, you know, get up.
I'm going to ask you a question that I was going to, that I was just going to go back to the past of rock thing. Forget it.
That's all right. You might as well.
Oh, it was about power feeling that you had, where you could have said something like, okay, let's rush the stage. And you knew that the people would have rushed the stage. And what did that do for your head at those times?
Well, I did that a few times just because I'd always heard about these riots at concerts, and we thought, well, I mean, we had a riot, everyone else does, you know? So I tried to stimulate a few little riots, you know, and then after a few times, I realized it's such a joke because it doesn't lead anywhere. It just, but you know what? It got to the point where people didn't think it was a successful concert unless everybody jumped up and ran around a bit. It's a joke because it leads nowhere. You know, I think it would be better to do a concert and just keep all that feeling submerged, and so when everyone left, they'd take that energy out on the streets or back home with them, you know, rather than just expending
Creatively,
it.
kind of.
Yeah, instead of expending it uselessly in a little crowd explosion.
That's probably what Donovan was trying to do in those times, which I guess was about the same time.
I never saw his work.
Well,
his laid back kind of thing.
Yeah, his thing was, you know, keep quiet, I'm singing. You know, everything's beautiful, kind of flowers, quiet. But it worked with the same people that were going crazy at Door concerts, or, you know, at the Beatles, or just screaming their heads off, and it seemed to work. Maybe that was he wanted to see if he could incite a piece.
The places I always enjoyed working were places about the size of the Aquarius Theater.
Santa Monica
Big,
Civic.
yeah, bigger than a club, but not a sports arena. You know, it's somewhat like an old theater. Those are I think that our particular brand of magic worked best in a theater situation. In outdoor concerts, I've always known it. What we do just gets totally dissipated. You know, it doesn't work at all.
Oh, another performer that I saw that really did something was James Taylor, and also Carole King. Carole King kind of, I don't know why. She's got this magic. When you stop and realize it, she's, you know, all the time you were growing up and listening to songs like Up on the Roof and things like that she'd been writing all those things, and then she comes out and still does contemporary songs that are, you know, as powerful as those things were banal, but with the same kind of power.
Yeah. Up on the Roof wasn't banal, really. Did she do mainly her own songs, or did she do a lot of other people's material?
For us.
Yeah, that's great.
She's written so much. She has such a catalog of them.
I think occasionally she'll do a James Taylor song or something, and she's been playing with James Taylor. James Taylor has got this kind of, what's popular now probably is this relaxed feeling. I don't know why. Single guitar, acoustic, you know.
I miss more good music because a couple years ago I got 86 for the Troubadour. I've tried to get in since then. They won't let me back in the club. I miss more good music that way.
How is your reputation of hey Russ? Hey Jim, how you doing?
Good.
Your reputation as drinker has developed. Is this intentional? Is this part of your knowing what you can do with your image? You enjoy drinking This can be off the record if you want.
No, no, I went through a period where I drank a lot. I think I had a lot of pressures hanging over me that I just couldn't cope with. And I think also drinking is it's a way to cope with living in a crowded environment, and it's also a product of boredom more than anything. I think people drink because they're bored. But I do enjoy drinking. It's, you know, it loosens people up and it stimulates conversation sometimes. And, I don't know. It's like gambling somehow. It's, you know, you go out for a night of drinking, you don't know where you're going to end up the next day. You know? It could work out good, and it could be disastrous. So it's kind of a throw of the dice.
It's the disastrous ones that people remember. But a lot of what was popular, even as far as drugs and drinking, seems to have died down or mellowed out or something.
Well, I don't know. I think there seem to be a lot of people shooting smack and speed and all that. I think it went from and everybody smokes grass. You know?
Yeah.
I guess you don't consider that a drug anymore.
Well, no.
But 3 years ago, there was that wave of hallucinogenics, and then I don't think anyone really has the strength to sustain those trips forever. And so then you go into narcotics, in which alcohol is one. Instead of trying to think more, you try and kill thought with alcohol and heroin, and downers. They're painkillers. I think that's what people have gone into.
They're getting into painkillers?
No, I think. Well, I figuratively. Alcohol for me because it's traditional, and also I hate scoring. You know, I hate the kind of sleazy sexual connotations of scoring for people. So I never do that. That's why I like alcohol. You can go down to any corner store or bar and it's right across the table. You know?
Incidentally, in that same Rolling Stone, there's an article about a group in San Francisco doing manufactured 10 joints to a pack or 20 joints to a pack cigarette things that they're selling out in the open, declaring it legal.
They sell in Vietnam like that, don't they? Vietnamese
I think so, yeah.
market.
Yeah, in cigarette packages. That might take take some of the edge off. At least take some of the ritual off of the whole drug scene.
I guess marijuana is not really what you'd call a drug anymore.
Yeah, this seems to be a way of life, more or less.
Part of the regular daily diet.
Really? I never think, I just can't function if I'm stoned. I function perfectly well, you know, I sit and stare at something or listen to music for 4 hours, but that's not what I consider functioning. You know.
I
can't either.
I think, well, what happens is they smoke so much and so constantly that it's not a trip anymore. It just becomes, I think they build up a cellular tolerance for it. It just becomes part of their body chemistry. And they're not really that, they're beyond stone. They're just...
level out.
Yeah, I don't know, that's...
It's really a treat now for me because I get so stoned every time I get stoned. It's so good.
Boy, it's chilly in LA. I guess this is the closest to winter we ever get here.
This is why all those people came to California, I guess.
Yeah, I just came out here a couple of years ago, and when it rains, I just refuse to accept the fact because it's always sunshiny in California and it never rains.
I love rain.
Do you?
Yeah.
I thought...
You get to really like things like that out here because it's always like this.
Well, I went back to New York.
Pray for snow.
I went back to New York, and it was just so dirty and grimy and just
That's
terrible.
where you're
It
from?
started to rain, yeah. It started to rain in Manhattan. I said, wow, this is going to be great. This is going to be something, you know, it's going to wash all this shit away. And the rain started, I had a white shirt on, the rain started landing on the shirt and leaving little brown spots. I just said, you know, like, this is all over. And then, you know?
No longer just rain clean my car even. I used to far out, my car's going to get washed. I come out now, it's just dirtier than it was before.
Well, at least, you know, you can see that hill after it's been kind of rainy weather.
Yeah.
And I've been, I guess you can
helps,
sit
too.
here and not see that hill on a bad day.
Yeah, easy. Thank God for the wind. My favorite partner.
Have you read any Buckminster Fuller?
Unfortunately, I haven't. Some friends of mine like him, and I've meant to. So I know some of his ideas through talking to them. But
You know, when you start to get depressed about the fact that the air is brown and that you're dying just by breathing and things like that, you read Buckminster Fuller and he sort of says, it's okay, we're going to put a geodesic dome over everything and pump out the air next year, you know.
right.
Which makes it twice as scary because then it becomes a reality.
Which, the dome or the other
You're
thing?
going to have to do it.
I hear that he owns part of an island in the Mediterranean, and he's off Crete or somewhere, and he's going to invite people from all over the world to
So do a community.
do I suppose, kind of utopian city there, which ought to be very interesting to watch. I know a lot of people would like to be invited. I wonder if they take applications or how he's going to choose.
This sort of things are very special. There's a city outside of Pondicherry, India called
Can I have a vodka Collins? You want another one? One more for the
I
end.
can't drink any more tomato juice though. I'm too full of that. I'll just have a glass of red wine.
Red wine?
Yeah.
More coffee or anything?
No, I'm probably up for a beer though.
We have Budweiser, Michelob, Lowenbrau.
Lombra.
Have you ever heard of that city, Oroville, that's outside of Pondicherry, India? The Universal City of Life.
No, what's it all?
It's based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo. And presently led by, I guess you would say, spiritually led by, and physically led by, what we call the Mother. And you really have to go through a lot to get in that place. I mean, you really have to be accepted on
Is this in India?
Yeah,
I know some people that tried to go there, and they got as far as London, and they kept sending telegrams, could they go, and they kept getting at no's, and they just kept getting closer, and they kept getting more no's, and they never got in. I think if I were to start an ideal city, I wouldn't tell anyone. That would be your first bad step. You'd have interviewers there, yeah, first thing.
Yeah, you can dissipate too many ideas in interviews. You really can. But I also believe in the interview as a new art form, and some of the most interesting things I've read recently have been self-interviews by writers. I think they're fascinating.
I could see that.
like Harvey's.
Did he do one?
Yeah, he wrote the piece that was in Playbill, and he also read the piece that appeared somewhere else. I can't remember.
The thing that was in the theater, the Tabor program.
Right. Where he wrote his review of himself. You understood it.
Harvey's off in Denmark right now, I guess. That's great.
I just got a postcard from him that said he had met my favorite actress, and that Kim Stanley, and that she was this and this and that witty and charming and beautiful and gorgeous and intelligent and attractive and fabulous. Everything you'd expect her to be.
What was she doing, a film over there, or a play, or what?
Harvey talks to me about what I'm not quite sure.
Maybe doing one of his plays.
Or my view.
Great. How did Rosewood do? That's good. He got pretty good reviews.
Well, I guess Harvey was carrying around a review that he loved personally that was from someone in Orange County, some small paper, that ripped the play apart on the basis of four-letter words, and it just went on, and the fellow concluded by saying, "And to think I brought a lady to see this play."
They didn't leave, did they?
I don't know. They might have.
Sullivan's review in the LA Times says to name twice.
Yeah.
Review I've ever seen about anything.
Well, Harvey was going around trying to figure out some way to meet this person without the guy knowing who he was. just to tell you. What? Dress up as a little guy.
His play gave me not so nice stuff.
I thought it was fantastic.
This play gave you nuts and
I
something?
thought maybe it was somebody. Next time I saw it, I realized it really had a very heavy psychological effect on me. It made my stomach weird. It's sort of like going back to the primal scream or something. There's something, obviously, that...
That's going to become very big. The primaling and primal screaming and the whole thing.
I haven't read that book yet. It's really interesting.
I haven't either, but now that Lennon is onto it, they're going to be.
Does Janoff use physical contact too? Like some therapists are doing, actually slapping people and holding on to them.
I don't.
I haven't read the book, but I don't believe so.
Yeah. We could discuss it authoritatively if you like. None of us knowing anything about it. Yeah. That's always been one of my prime pleasures is reviewing records without listening to them, or going in school just doing book reviews on imaginary books, and constantly, because it was just so much more fun than what you had to do.
Borges does some of those. He says, "Why write a novel anymore? All you really need is a review of the novel."
Of your novel.
So he just writes reviews of novels that he's got written. Yeah, they're great too.
Yeah.
What kind of code is that guy? Rabbit? Looks like rabbit. To make the most of it.
You probably missed most of production.
What?
You probably missed most of the production of the paper, you
No,
lucky.
that's what I'm calling. Tell them I'm not coming today. No, they don't start till 2 or 3.
Oh, I was hoping they would start. Too bad.
What time is it getting to be?
About 1:45, I guess.
So you grew up in New York? Manhattan or outside?
Long Island.
You don't have a heavy New York accent like a lot of people.
I think I've tried not to.
So I would have thought you were a California boy. But often
Using my
often
California girl.
you can spot New Yorkers by their accent very often.
When I first came out here, I was telling people back home, like, you've got to leave, you just got to leave. And no one seems to listen. People invent reasons for wading through shit.
So how many years have you been out here?
Almost 2. Came out, I was teaching in New York. I came out for the earthquake that was supposed to happen a year ago, May.
Right.
We got a couple of friends and I got a car. I just thought that the best thing that could happen is if we were in the middle of an earthquake.
Right.
Something that would be an event of the century. It's not something to be missed. So we got in this car and just raced out here as fast as we could, to hit the deadline date, and then it didn't happen. That's kind of disappointment.
People were buying coastline property out in the desert.
Yeah, right. On the other side of the San Andreas Fault.
Well, what happened? Did that really have expert opinion behind the prediction, or was it just...
I think that the experts said that, it's got to happen sometime. and they said, within the next 10 years, and there hasn't been a little earthquake in a while, so the chances of a big one increase proportionally. And a bunch of people just picked up on it and picked up on a date. And, it's like anything. Once you get your hype together, you don't need the event anymore.
For all intents and purposes, it happened.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been an event to remember.
Well, one thing that's just always, I've always thought would just be incredible is just be sitting in my living room, stoned out of my head, and have the whole house bouncing up and down. I just very calmly say, like, wow, it must be good dope.
Let's go out in the street and observe the desolation for a while. I used to love earthquakes. San Francisco earthquake, that was a great one. And,
Peru really came out of it.
they've had them for centuries. Really great.
Really like that. That was fun to see.
So Allen Ginsberg goes on that what man has done is put these concrete blisters all over the earth. And the earth just naturally is trying to push them off into the ocean or just get rid of them and trying to breathe. When he says it, you believe him. He doesn't seem to be a man that would lie. Blisters. There's like scabs all over the world. It's really a fitting image if you could sort of look at the earth from the moon or something.
Highlight description of mankind. He said it's an ambulatory planetary cancer. I'll never forget that. It just stuck in my mind.
Some people I know have figured out that gorillas and men could mate. Genetically, their chromosomes match up enough so that they could mate. They're trying to grow something by mating a gorilla and a person. Probably a female person. No. A female person and a male gorilla or something. Too artificial. Complicated biological processes. And one of the reasons for doing it is to get like equal opportunity for gorillas. Because if they came out with something, it would mean, that it was criminal to cage gorillas. Because it would prove that gorillas were a variance of humans. They were the same species or whatever.
And all the gorillas would run free and all the monkeys.
Either that or all the people would be locked up. Which might just be better.
Everybody should run free.
You don't see that very often anymore.
Miniskirt and white boots.
It's kind of nice. Maybe that'll come back in. Just anything under the sun.
I've been doing interviews lately. Doing some short stories, trying to sell them.
It must be right, because there's no big market for short stories.
Well, I haven't found any market, so I don't imagine that's a very big one. I did a play that one person I showed it to was a fellow who's had some in New York. A friend of mine's had stuff done on Broadway. Suggested that a weatherman group do it in a fallout shelter, which says something for it. It says that its commercial potential is rather low, but there is something.
What's the play about?
It's a musical comedy about paraplegics and spastics, and it's political. The heroine is a Statue of Liberty, and all the characters, Planters Peanut and Uncle Sam and Zip Code Man, and those are kind of all the characters.
Sounds like a Zap comic in a way.
I've never read Zip comics, but probably it does.
They're great.
I can't, I don't know, I somehow look at them and don't find them that funny. I don't know.
Yeah, the first few times I looked at them, I went, I think the movie is nice,
Yeah.
Quite grasped those, but
They're very insidious because you start seeing fantasy. You start seeing life as a Zap comic after a while.
fantasies that you have never developed in print. You got Snatch and all those really gross ones.
It's almost an overload, your brain circuit.
Yeah. Those ones with the pirates. You can take one of those pictures and look for hours,
I know, comics, I turned off the comics, I didn't know, when I started doing grammar in elementary school, and I was trying to look for an example of when to use a period or something, and I looked in a comic book and there was nothing but exclamation points, and I said, something's wrong. There's got to be things other than exclamation points. And somehow, after that, the comics just never did it to me.
You had a Rita Zap coming sometime when you're
I've seen them and gone through them, but
didn't react to.
The whole tremendous amount of different ones now.
What is it like working on the Free Press? I was curious.
I don't work for them
Oh, that's
like
right.
full time or anything.
Is it
I could describe my impression of what it was like.
is it
Mass hysteria for 3 days out of the week, 4-day weekends.
I'd be working like inside a box of animal crackers.
Yeah, you have to rise above it, hopefully. You can get very swept up in there's a lot of factual games going on, which is the downfall of the Free Press, I guess. For the major downfalls.
It's funny how much. Excuse me. It's funny how much power the Free Press actually has. As far as it's the same thing with record companies. There's the thing that I do for the Free Press. The Free Press is a major underground outlet in LA. In fact, it's probably the only one, isn't it? The only underground outlet, except for maybe underground radio stations, as far as record companies are concerned. And so, whatever gets said in there about their records or about people is just immensely important. It has a large circulation. So there's this sort of self-feeding cycle that goes on, where there are all kinds of bribes from record companies and things going on. So, just to keep the circle
I
going.
wouldn't say they're bribes.
And
At least they're not visible.
I don't know, it makes a
well,
difference
you get
to
into
you.
concerts, you get albums.
Oh, in that way, yeah. There's always that they keep feeding you with things.
At least $100 a year worth of stuff from each of many record companies, a minimum of $100 a year. Things that comes to like $1,500 a year or something.
Christmas presents, or they don't go that far.
That's very rarely. PR companies sometimes do it if you just accidentally really hyped a group that made well because of your thing. Then they send, maybe someone gets a watch.
Some companies do. Columbia sent out Christmas presents to major reviewers.
Right.
It was really kind of
They didn't
obscene.
send it
I think it is. I really do. I mean, all the Christmas cards I got from the record companies, I got a rubber stamp that said "Same to you" and just sent it back to them.
You get gratuities, you get tabs when you go to concerts, clubs and stuff. You get to drink all you want. Record companies get that and things like that.
And in a way, it's coming out of your pocket or out of the artist's pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, a lot of it's distasteful. A lot of it is, good as far as you're doing your job, but fairly often it exceeds what's necessary.
I don't despise journalism at all. In fact, I like it.
I know.
Let's face it. Who reads novels anymore unless they're really dirty or something?
Or good.
Yeah, which are few and far between. It's the journalism that's most interesting. I guess things are happening so fast, they're so confusing now that people are more interested in the evening news and talk shows. They're just interested in what other people are thinking and what's actually happening. Than
I think the surface.
I can't think of anyone at the Free Press that considers themselves to be a journalist. I really can't.
There are very few left.
No,
At the paper?
well, there's no. It depends on what type of journalist. Hard news. We don't cater to hard news. We did it one time. There's a time when I was going out around the city taking pictures, and there is no more of that.
But I kind of think of journalism as whether it's news or whether it's human interest or whatever kind of thing of going out and researching something and talking to people and coming up with a story. But I think that I don't know how much of that goes on.
There's too much. I don't know. There seems to be too much of a deadline pressure where you really don't research a story. You just you find out surface information as much as you possibly can.
the wires from interview, and then you write it. You don't do this, study and investigative reporting and all that.
It's more of a mechanics assembly.
I always read the Free Press, but it's more like, it takes about 10 minutes. It's more,
I rarely read.
well, you get a kind of, it's the texture of a magazine. I don't mean, And it's even partly the physical texture of the paper and all that. But I mean, it's just, even if you didn't read English, you could get kind of a feel of a city or something by reading the free press. The ads. I mean, you can tell the change in mores over the years by just looking at the ads in the free press.
Quite exotic now.
They're getting more and more exotic.
Hardcore. It's really not the hardcore. There's magazines and papers now that just exceedingly prurient, I guess is the word.
And then you get a certain slant on stories that you wouldn't get in the LA Times, for example. You get a different coverage of the Manson trial than you would get in another publication.
Yeah, the Manson thing is a little different with the Free Press because they've got Ed Sanders doing that. He just does a beautiful job of the coverage that he's doing. I think that's an exception, and
He's not really with the Free Press. He was.
Yeah, it's a paid exception.
He wanted to do that.
He's a Manson entirely. That's
Well,
what
he's doing a book, and probably that's sort of a side income for him to do a story, and probably he's compelled to say something once a week. Any writer is compelled to do something.
I wonder if he'll edit his stories much when the book comes out.
The book's
add a lot.
completely different.
The book is he's a trivia freak, and he's going to go into all these really involved. You hear him talk, it's just amazing to him. He probably knows more about the Manson trial and the people involved than the lawyers. Everyone it seems. And
Even the people directly involved.
Because there are so many people. There's so many murderers out now, and there's stories about heads.
Has he made up his mind on what actually happened?
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, he doesn't.
It has to do with dope coming in and lettuces in the supermarket. That's what it gets down to. The whole thing was a drug burn, apparently.
Drug burn. That was one of the original theories when it first happened, and that kind of got lost.
It got so confused because of
and they're just crazy murderers, crazy people.
But he thinks they actually did it. About the way that the prosecution says it happened.
That's another case where Sanders was just upset because Manson had absolutely no part in the trial. I mean, he's just extraneous in a way that again, it's culture on trial where Manson's a symbol of something, and whether he did it or not really didn't make too much difference.
Has he been able to talk to Manson?
I think so. Yeah.
In jail, or what is his impression? Did he write about that? I may have missed that episode.
I don't think so. I don't know. My impression was seeing him. I went down there once.
Is it hard to get in?
The time I went the day the jury was finally selected, I didn't go for any of the trial stuff. But it was quite. He's just a small man with a tremendous amount of charisma or something. He just didn't emanate anything from me particularly. I don't know. I find not too much use for this anymore.
What probably will happen? I hear they may only get 20 years.
Think about that, Jim. Only 20 years.
Yeah, but I mean, you can on a 20-year sentence, you can get out in 3 years, conceivably, can't you?
I think I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to come back with. I really don't think they care.
I guess that's what happens. They drag it out so long that after a while, no one could care. I suppose that's one of the functions of a trial. They muddy it up so much that you don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, it's just
that's what society's way of assimilating a horrible event.
Yeah, it's too bad though that if you haven't got the money or if you're political, that you've got to spend that time being assimilated in jail.
I was thinking of writing down my experiences going through a trial. Can I have one more and check, I guess? Guess we all gotta move on. But Suppose I wrote a essay on it. Where do you think would be the best organ of journalism to try and get it printed in?
I think you'd have your choice.
Would
really
Ramparts be better, for example, than Free Press or Rolling Stone, or what would be?
It's a question of status.
Well,
you know, it's not a question. Or you can pick your size readership of the type. If you want music freaks to read it, yeah, give it to Rolling Stone. They'll print it.
Yeah.
You know.
Other than that, to read it though.
Yeah,
if you want kind of.
Ramparts, but it's. I don't know if it would quite fit in. But I think it'd be perfect for a magazine rather than.
Depending on how articulated it was. Scanlons
Cut it down to 3 paragraphs.
Scanlons, yeah.
That would be very interesting.
Do they have a large readership, or is it pretty?
I don't know how large it is. They're very interesting readership.
That's an idea.
Very interesting readership.
I guess Esquire's pretty.
Yeah, Esquire
Wide.
to it. Or depending on you know what you do, one of the weekly things like Life or Look. I don't know how much they go into that. Might do that.
I'd think it'd be pretty hard to get in there because it's not really that current. You know?
Well, actually, I don't read any of these things, so.
I like magazines. I don't really read them either, but I like to thumb through them and just kind of get a gloss on what's happening. You get a feeling from it.
Things with lots of photographs.
Me too.
That's how I read. I go for photographs.
I could see a magazine of all photographs. It would be universal. It wouldn't depend on language.
Well, Realite, the French thing, used to do that apparently, but I don't. They're still printing, but I don't know how well they do.
It's still out, you know.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful magazine.
I think they shouldn't have come out in an English edition, just on sort of a snob basis.
Right.
Realite.
Probably set their overhead just soaring too. It must really.
To print in English too.
Probably
Their
doesn't.
printing process is so fine. They have such a high quality.
Yeah, well, that other thing, Horizon used to do
Oh, they
a
were
magazine.
beautiful.
I always wished I'd been able to afford them. I was too young then and not making nearly enough money to afford $12 a copy. I don't know, $12, not a copy,
A lot.
but for 4 issues or something.
Yeah.
That's right. They don't do it anymore, huh?
I don't think
That's
so.
too bad.
So many things are folding, probably because media has changed a lot. You know, newspapers just keep going under. Where there's one major newspaper in LA. The Examiner doesn't count anymore, really.
I wonder who buys the Examiner.
We have a large Orange County readership.
Is that it? They're more conservative?
It's conservative, right wing, and
I guess their headlines is what most people buy them for. If you're looking at a stand and you see 2 headlines on the same event, you kind of gravitate toward what you think.
but the Examiner kind of does a bad job of what the New York Daily News does a good job of doing. Where the New York Daily News has the same, you know, gory headlines. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
No. Where they just do a beautiful job of yellow journalism. Just great. Where it's you can read it and enjoy it. And the Herald Examiner doesn't.
They're kind of between the Times and the National Enquirer. You know that magazine? I don't mean
That's improved, by the way. They were probably forced out by like Screw and a lot of those magazines. They've become legitimate.
If you'd like to come down to the paper with us anytime, just
All right. I would be interested. Poke around a bit.
Really, stage, anything.
Are you in Fairfax or
Right across from CBS.
On Beverly.
7813 on Beverly Boulevard.
1713?
7813.
7813. Right. When you say across from it,
Across the street, you know, the CBS, the big monster.
right. On this side of the...
On the north side. On Beverly.
What days are you usually down there?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm there most all the time those days, and then Thursday.
And they don't do the printing there, they just do the whole layout there, and then they send it out.
Tuesday and Wednesday is the day where most of the activity goes on when they put together the paper. The Thursday, everybody sits around and does absolutely nothing.
What is the breakdown on subscription mailing versus selling on the streets?
I think our circulation is about 100,000 or so.
It's not really that.
Paid? It's street and paid.
That's street and paid.
It's probably about 90,000.
Yeah, with returns and things like that. We print about 100,000. I really don't know how much subscription is. We cover our overhead of printing with our subscription and sales.
And then the ads where you make your
The ad
profit.
is where the profit comes from.
I'll tell you, I've gone through periods where I wouldn't go into the building just because of the vibrations. You know,
Yeah, it can keep you quite
just too
hectic
heavy.
sometimes. Most of the time, you just,
Things
don't
were-
give a shit. If you don't care about those trips, and they don't affect you, then it's not, you don't have to work within it.
In a way, there's so much emphasis on everyone doing their own thing, and a lot of times, the people's own thing, it's their own thing and all, but it might not come up to requirements of the paper or whatever, and it should be edited or it should be something, but there is no editing really of any copy. Apart for a sentence being cut out or a paragraph being cut out, usually because of length.
Right. All the news that fits.
Yeah.
Together now. What's the whole...
Brian and Chris, I guess,
Brian?
and Chris Vanessa.
They put the whole paper together?
Most of it.
Well,
Other
they-
people do ads, I think. They do the
ad
news.
department comes in, I
Yeah.
like play stories and stuff like that, and pictures.
So all the news is...
They disseminate, or it comes into them.
It's a very strange thing. I was telling you before. There's really just a lot of power in having 100,000 people listening to you, and then having that there's a lot of money that's changing hands. And a lot of people want to be in on it.
I already got the other one.
Oh, you
That's why you're wondering.
I thought we were getting away with something.
Right. I can't believe that.
Yeah. I was hesitating whether just to let them make a mistake or...
They rescue you out right there.
I don't know. I'd like to be involved in a magazine someday. I like publishing. I really do.
I think you'll find there's an awful delay
Yeah.
in things that go on.
I guess that's one value, the free press. You can get it out within a couple of weeks. Yeah.
That's a lot of delay sometimes.
Yeah.
The deadline now is Friday night. Friday night. So that means
very late anyway. Depends on
what's that?
if they want your story.
For the following Wednesday,
It comes
Thursday.
2 hours before the paper goes out sometimes, because then they'll try to get a few people coming in and out. Right. Takes away from just pure boredom.
So the sales aren't progressively rising. They kind of hit a level.
No.
As of 6 months ago, they rose, and then they're sort of staying where they rose to, I guess.
But it is, in a way, it's an amazing success story because I remember the free press when it started. How old is it now?
5, 6 years?
Yeah, because that's just about when I arrived in LA about 6 years ago. And at that time, the free press was indistinguishable from any real small underground paper, and they've really stabilized and become almost a newspaper. Yeah. Well, really, the free press in LA is a part of everybody's life in a small way.
In the country, it probably rates as the second of importance, the Village Voice.
Village Voice.
Yeah, being
Well, now we have our own printing plant. There's been a lot of mismanagement. We do have, the bookstores, but it's a little Kunkin empire.
Now, when megalomaniacs function well when everything's going well. There comes a time when they don't.
It's almost too noisy here, isn't it?
I'm used to New York, Joe.
Yeah.
It's quiet.
On a hot day, this place it's very pleasant, So what do we got? Through January. Seven Samurai. I think Jimbo was the one with the great fight scene. Right. I saw that. I'd never seen it. Yeah.
Amazing. That's when he wipes out like 300 warriors or something
I haven't seen any of them. I'm going to see them all, I
He starts
hope.
at one point in the road and just goes for however long it is. Just slaves. Warrior after warrior.
It's really not bloody, is it? No, it's not. Bloody. It's not. Compared to the Wild Bunch, it's like a no play. It's very stylized, almost like a ballet.
What do you think's the point of all the violence in the films? It's come out, I guess, starting with Bonnie and Clyde, it's got really explicit violence.
Yeah, they used to just shoot people and they just kind of
They
fall
fell down, right. But Bonnie and Clyde is, did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, and then everyone started, I think it was the Wild Bunch or one of those that had, when someone got shot, there'd be this nice splurt of blood coming out. And then everyone started using that one. They had holes in the stomach or something.
Yeah, till they've gotten, I haven't seen MASH, but I understand that's, like, incredibly gory. And then you get Satyricon, where they chop the fellow's arm off, and he's holding up a limb, a bleeding limb.
But you don't really believe that stuff.
Oh, I don't know.
Performance before they cut it down. I didn't see the uncut version. I heard it was much better.
Yeah, it was like you were saying earlier. I walked out for 5 minutes. Because it was too brutal for me. I didn't want to see anymore. And it was just amazing.
There's a movie that they previewed in Santa Monica with a...
I wish I'd seen the uncut version.
I haven't seen the new version.
I heard about 5 minutes at the... Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they kept changing the synopsis each time.
Yeah.
What happened? I understand that they had an original version. Warner Brothers wouldn't accept it, and so they gave it to some cutter who wasn't involved in the making of the film at all, and he recut it. And I understand. Well, it's that, if you didn't see the original, how are you going to know? This one might be 10 times better. But apparently, they really cut the balls out of the whole picture.
Yeah, they showed in the footage that wasn't used before.
They showed in one of the first, the first uncut one that got previewed. They previewed it in Santa Monica, one of these, preview night things, showing it with an X movie, which means you've got people over 18 there, and half the audience walked out.
The strangest thing, I've never seen an audience do this. One gentleman stopped and said, "What are you, sheep? You don't have to watch this. Everybody, let's leave." And half the audience got up and left.
I know a friend of mine was there. It was in Westwood.
Santa Monica, yeah.
And he said it was one of the most amazing film experiences because of the audience. They'd gone there seeing another film, and this came on, and well, that's the kind of thing I dig. People throwing things and standing up.
That used to go on. People used to throw ketchup bottles at the screen.
Right.
I remember that being a big deal. They always used to check you for ketchup bottles when you went in. Maybe this was New York, but that was a thing.
Well, that's what it should be. There's nothing sacred about a movie, and
Well, as far as they're concerned, there's something sacred about $400 screen or whatever it is.
I'm sure it's more than that. Because in places in Hollywood Boulevard now, some theaters you'll see big stains on the screen and all that. It really interrupts, if you're trying to get into the film, you keep looking at this spot. And it must be incredibly expensive to replace a movie screen. You probably have to do it in big sections. Or maybe the whole thing, I don't know. It must be, you can't just make a little patch.
I've seen that done. Did you see a function in the violence?
I think it's just trying to keep ahead of reality. That's all. If you can put it up in a movie where there's no immediate danger, then somehow you've transcended violence. So they try and make it more and more realistic. I saw one called, it was the guys that made Mondo Connie. They made one called Africa Audio, and then they changed it to Africa Blood and Guts or something. The second time it came around. But they had actual mercenaries shooting natives in Africa, and they had a lot of actual deaths.
Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there aren't those big spurts of blood coming out or anything.
People dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something. The first case that American people got of that was Ruby being killed. Was it Ruby that was killed?
Yeah, on TV.
Yeah, it was live coverage.
Right.
When it was I guess the 1960s comparison to the Zeppelin disaster, or was it the Hindenburg or whatever?
Right.
Where here we are, folks. There they are getting killed.
They're going to have Mick Jagger movie, Give Me Shelter. It's going to be on with the death, about
Where's that going to open? That's not in town yet, is it?
that should be good.
Yeah.
In a way, doesn't that destroy part of the reversibility of the cinema?
Well, I think that's one of the major functions of cinema is to make people look at what's happening. I mean, whether you like it or not, you have to look at it because it's actually true, supposedly. And I think it's good to make people actually face reality. That's one of the major functions of cinema.
But it's going to be really disorienting for a lot of people. I mean, if, for instance, in Performer, Mick Jagger had been killed, physically, actually killed. That was part of the script, and that's the way the script ran.
But then he lived at the end.
Well, I'm forgetting about that just for the sake of the conversation. Isn't that going to just change the whole outlook of the thing? I mean, it makes it like a Marilyn Monroe movie now, where you're going to see someone who is no longer alive.
But, I mean, it's just a movie,
But it becomes a different intent, Whether you go to see, say, Performance, whether you're thinking Mick Jagger is great or Mick Jagger was great, it makes a big difference on what the movie means to you and how you react to the movie. The same way that friends of the guy who was killed at Altamont at the Rolling Stones thing are going to look at that movie a lot differently than you or I might look at it. Seeing this, frame for frame, seeing the same thing, at least having the same thing projected into their head.
Yeah, the thing is everyone wants to go see it,
Everyone's going to draw a different experience from it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I like the Maisel brothers films. I like cinema verite very much. It's to me every movie is a documentary because it's real people and things. It's just that a Hollywood musical from the 40s is a documentary of a lot of people dancing around and singing. It's real people. So they're all documentaries. I like them. I'm sure it'll be a good film. When does that open?
It should be fairly soon. I think it's been cut.
Yeah, they always do good movies.
I think I'm going to have to get back.
I got a split too again.
Yeah. Thanks to whoever for lunch. I guess.
Thanks for that.
It's cold weather today.
Here come the picture that they're looking at. Had to give you a chance to focus there. Have you got things going movie-wise now? Anything on you?
Nothing specific. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm in no real hurry,
Your friend told me a picture of you and Jim Morrison.
in a way, it doesn't matter. I used to be in a big hurry to make films.
Do you find that kind of happens? You'd always just not in a hurry to do anything?
Yeah.
And
The edge kind of gets rubbed off me.
I see people now, 16, 17, 18, carrying around, like scratch paper and pencil all the time. In case they get a poem, they got to get it down. And, you know, I carry a paper bag in my back pocket in case I hit something going right down.
I think really film is a middle-aged man's sport, really. I think you have to have a more balanced, experienced view of life to make an interesting film. I mean, that's a dogma or anything, but...
What do you consider middle-aged, though? I mean,
well, you know,
I think
over 30.
I don't know, I think of you as middle-aged and me as middle-aged.
Yeah,
yeah. What do you think have been good movies that you've seen?
I go see everything, and you know what, I like every movie, even the worst. I always find something to like about it. To me, it's just amazing that you can gather all these supposedly adult human beings together to act out these fantasies. It'll never cease to amaze me how they get people to do that.
Yeah, but look at the way they get people to act out, you know, real fantasies. Like they've got a man playing bus driver.
Yeah, every day, right now, I'm having a good time.
You know, and that's probably a harder part to play than Macbeth.
That amazes me too. How they get people to report to work every day.
Yeah.
You know, I guess people get a family and they just have to. You know, there's no way to kid around about it. They have to do it. 2 hours on the Harbor Freeway every day.
Yeah. Well,
somebody's doing it.
there's an awful lot of people that aren't doing that though. That are saying, you know, well, I'd rather shovel shit for 2 days a week than sit behind the desk 5.
In a way, though, I can see the appeal of having somewhere you have to report every day. It gives kind of a form to your life, you know. Because otherwise, what would you do with all that time? Good. So that is true. Most people have no idea what to do. You know, took them away from their jobs. Self-sufficient.
Well, that's one of the functions of cinema, isn't it? People have more leisure hours. That's why movies are booming.
I think so. Right. Just to kill time.
The entertainment industry. That's what it is.
I would say over a tenth of the population's lifetime is to entertain the other 80 or 90%. And even newspapers fall in that category, really. It's more entertainment than anything. You get entertainers everywhere. Everything.
Did you find you were able to believe cinema that plays? And
I can't believe plays.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that many. I just can't believe them. You know, to me, the beauty of a play is language. And I figure that the text is all important.
In a play.
Yeah.
There's something. I think it's the way a movie is done, where there's so much more time to think all around and edit and just the technical part. I don't know, that impresses me as the hard part of doing a movie is putting it together in your head while you're doing it. You know.
It's usually created in the editing. There are exceptions to that. There's some men that have the whole thing carefully blocked out in their heads before the shooting begins. In other words, they see the whole movie. But I think that's less and less true.
Well, someone like Richard Lester did with Petulia, which I thought was no story at all, nothing at all, and came out with a good movie.
You know what? I know the guy that wrote that, and he said that's the only script he's ever written that actually, when he saw the movie, he could recognize the story that he'd written. And so that's interesting that which really was free-form, was actually well scripted in advance.
I find that hard to...
If it's true, that's an incredible job of writing, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a flash forward that I hadn't seen before that, and there's just...
I like the Chili. I just saw it in a screening room a couple of weeks ago. I liked it very much. I understand people are really divided over it. So.
Yeah, I've spoken to people that hated it, or else just found it to be nothing. Or did I say I found the story to be nothing? But it, you know,
It had
a vehicle for the film.
It had a vision that I found very, very true.